So I don't want to mislead anyone about what we meant by a recitation. So it's nothing about doing an experiment, okay? It's more like a dry lab. And so the story is a few years ago, we recognized that our first year general chemistry students, they are more likely to fail. And we also see a few of our second year students are struggling. And so we are saying, okay, we need to actually provide an academic support programs for all students. So what we've decided to do is to offer this, what we call a novel lab recitation, which we actually apply the supplemental instruction style technique to help students. So the next thing I should talk about is what exactly is a recitation, because most people don't know what a recitation is. So if you look at the dictionary, the first two entries actually say that it's about reading something aloud. In other words, just repeating the same thing. But what it turns out is that if you actually go to school in the States, like myself, you will know that recitation get other two meanings. One is that a student oral reply to questions. The second is actually what is more relevant here is a class period, especially in association and for review of a lecture. Okay, so what is the objective? So as I said, our goal is to offer mandatory academic support. So students must attend those net recitation. And what's happening is that for general chemistry, we have lab every other week. So during the week, students don't have lab. We actually make them attend this lab recitation. So now students will do the wet lab, dry lab, wet lab, dry lab, so on and so forth. And in the lab recitation, we focus on the common challenges they experience in first year general chemistry, including the math, the chemistry, and I will talk about that in a moment. The key thing is we apply the supplemental instruction style techniques in the lab recitation. That include we make students to learn in groups. So we actually force them to do group exercises together so that they can practice the chemistry questions. At the same time, we have either TAs or instructors, professors like us, will actually offer the interactive learning experience for our students. So we try to interact with them in addition to the group exercises. We also provide immediate feedback. So we'll actually talk about this more in a moment. Our goal is, like the supplemental instruction, is to give students the effective study skills and habits, because we understand that many of our students, they lack the required study skills to succeed in university chemistry. So I'll talk about this more in a moment. So next thing is, what would they do? So when we first started, we actually started with the face-to-face or in-person session. So I'll tell you what the background is, because since then we moved to remote. So in the face-to-face session, what we would do is students will actually spend up to 1.5 hours. Remember, a lab period is 3 hours. So they will spend about half the time working in groups to solve the exercise together. And then before each group exercise, we actually give them a brief introduction about those questions. And so it's either Lynn and I or the TAs will do it. Okay, so about half of the sessions are held by Lynn and myself, and then the other half by the TAs. Now, after working on each question, students will be asked to give the answers. Usually we pick the strongest students to give the answers, and we ask them why, how they come up with the answer, and then we'll give them immediate feedback. And then we will give a complete solution again on the board. So in other words, we try to actually talk about the answers a few times. And the key thing we do that is quite different from a typical tutorial is that at the end of each session, we actually work with students together to summarize what they have learned. And then they must write a quiz before they can leave. So the quiz is actually make up of half the points. And the key thing about that quiz is it's open book, open notes. We actually encourage them to take all the notes they can during the session so that they can actually use the same information on the quiz. If they fail the first quiz, they must take the second quiz. After they talk to us, in other words, we will correct their issues, tell them how they make the mistakes before they actually write the second quiz. In other words, we want them to improve. So this is actually a combination of the testing effect that people commonly use in teaching and learning. So I just want to quickly talk about the 5 recitation sessions we cover. So those are the topics we cover. So those are like the typical general chemistry 1 topics. So those are like the math skills, how to calculate moles, stoichiometry in emitting reagent, and then we move on to thermochemistry, using the periodic table to figure out the trends and the electron configurations, and then write the neurostructures, and then look at molecular structures and functional groups of organic compounds. So I will let Alla to finish the other half of the presentation.
So during the pandemic, recitations are being offered as remote synchronous sessions with a few revisions and updates. We have learned from the face-to-face recitations about the dissatisfaction with the facilitation by graduate students. Therefore, to make the delivery more consistent for all students, a set of videos was created to provide the overview of group exercises before students go on to work on those exercises in groups in Zoom breakout rooms. To engage students to participate, verify their understanding, and it's also a learning tool. We also ask them polling questions and chat questions that relate to the videos and to the concepts that are covered during the recitations. Starting in winter 2021. Finally, online quizzes are administered at the end of each lab recitations, and they again have 2 attempts that they can make, or they have to make if they fail the first attempt of the quiz. Next slide, please. And as you can see here from the plot, when we asked students how they ranked the lab recitation overall, the group exercises, study skills they acquired, and how well recitations supported the lecture portion of the material, recitations ranked positively overall. And as previously mentioned, there was some dissatisfaction with teaching assistants, so that could account for some of the negative responses in about face-to-face sessions. Next slide, please. Okay, when students in the remote recitations were surveyed in the most recent semester, winter 2021, the rankings exhibited similar trend to what was observed in face-to-face sessions. However, of note, there were no negative responses and complaints about TA performance. So there are no negative responses about the recitation. Next slide. In summary, mandatory academic support programs are effective. Since the pandemic has disrupted learning in high school, first-year students will likely require more academic support post-pandemic. And it would be important to focus on fundamental concepts in chemistry and mathematics so that all of the students are on the same wavelength and are able to perform. We have successfully applied surveys to revise and update recitations from face-to-face to remote learning. And we intend to keep using some of the instructional technologies, including videos and online quizzes. And these are some of the acknowledgements for people who contributed. Thank you.